What is going on, miners, and welcome back to the channel. Well, look who I found. Greater Good Mining. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you doing, hobbyist?
I'm doing awesome. So him and I got the chance actually, last time I actually saw you, I think was the Caspa party,
hmm
the after party at Mining Disrupt. And that was an absolute blast. Probably one of the highlights of my trip, just hanging out, talking crypto for hours, having drinks. And so it's a pleasure to jump on camera with you.
Yep, same. That was a fun party, man, and we got to meet
Yeah.
the Caspa team and hang out and talk to them about the protocol and just how it's changing the game.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. So, you and I have both had great success with Caspa. You more than me, but you definitely got into Caspa very, very early on. I actually had the opportunity to listen to. I'll go ahead and plug. Your friend Andy actually had a podcast with you where
Mhm.
it's, and I'll put links to that down below, where you guys talked all about your journey with Caspa, getting in early. So you've really been involved with Caspa since its infancy. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, since basically late 2022. So the protocol launched November 2021, so it wasn't as early. Actually, Andy was earlier, but I hopped on in 2022, late 2022, and I've just hodled everything since then. So I think that just being early and that aggressive emission schedule, it really worked out well for GPU miners if they hodled. So the
Yeah,
emission
I think
schedule
I
being
remember your story. Yeah, I think I remember your story of like you got in early with GPU mining. You also bought into it early,
mhm.
and then you actually were. Which model did you get like right away? Was that the KS1 that I remember?
Yeah, so I ordered the KS0 and the KS1 like at the same exact time, and the KS0 came like early June, and then about a week later the KS1 arrived. So June they both arrived like in the same week. It was a very exciting week for me.
And I think I remember something like how many thousands of Caspa was the KS1 earning per day? I mean, just a ballpark. Do you remember?
I do remember it was 18,000 Caspa per day.
Oh,
The KS1 when I first got it, it was crushing it, just crushing it.
insane, insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something, as you mentioned there earlier, to say for the fact of getting in early, if it's buying or if it's getting the miner early. And I think this is a great segue into the conversation of, is a lithium the next Caspa? And so there's kind of two things really to talk about. One is the project, just, will it explode like we saw Caspa? And two is, will miners follow suit and kind of our expectations with the current miners as of right now. So let's talk lithium here. So at the highest level possible with that statement, do you believe lithium is going to be the next Caspa? And you don't know anything more than anyone else does. You don't have a magic 8 ball, but just based off of your thoughts and feelings. Today's video is sponsored by the team over at asicmarketplace.com. With crypto mining hardware prices dropping, it's critical to find an online store you can trust with your ASIC purchases. The team at asicmarketplace.com has you covered with some of the most competitive pricing on the market. No matter what brand you're looking for, ASIC Marketplace has it. To name just a few: Bitmain, Goldshell, WhatsMiner, IB-Link, iPolo, Jazzminer, and many more. There are no surprises with ASIC Marketplace. The price listed on their website includes shipping. Imagine that. Finally, ASIC Marketplace takes the buying experience to the next level by accepting cryptocurrency as payment directly on their store. Go check out ASIC Marketplace today via the link in this video's description down below, as well as save $110 at checkout with discount code The Hobbyist Miner.
So I've looked into both projects, pretty deeply, and they are different enough where I I feel like Lithium is a great project. I think you can be very successful mining it. I mined it with GPUs, and I did buy some kind of like the same thing I did with Caspa. The tokenomics are different. There's like there was a pre-sale. There was like 14% of the Genesis block goes towards different things like that. So the tokenomics aren't like as squeaky clean as Caspa's with their fair launch and everything like that. But I do think that being early on a lithium, we have enough time where we can mine before, if you believe in the cycles and the way bull runs tend to play out, I do feel like you can mine a pretty good amount of lithium since there isn't that much hardware out there yet. We are only at 3 petahash last I checked. For the hash rate on Lithium, it has doubled in the last month, just like Caspa. So there is some heavy duty equipment coming out at, the AL1 and all that. We can talk about that in a minute, I'm sure. But I, with the tokenomics being different from Caspa, the emission schedule being different from Caspa, I don't feel like it's the next Caspa. It's scalable, but we're talking right now like 16 blocks per second versus 1 block per second. If Caspa goes rusty, the rusty Caspa that they're trying to work on, it'll be 10 blocks per second. And if we get KRC 20, that changes the game too. Then we're going to get, fees and things like that on top of what we're mining. So, and the timing is just different. Caspa, we had plenty of time to mine before potentially the next bull run. So I just feel like I do think Lithium's a good project, really good project. I just don't feel like it is the next Caspa. I feel like Caspa is very unique in the way it solves the trilemma. It's just a different animal, not a bad animal. Both are really great projects,
Yeah, sure.
but a different animal than Caspa for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had, we've had our opportunities with Lithium. There's been, we've gone through the different avenues. We've seen FPGA miners and such. And, now we've kind of caught up to the point where, everybody is hoping that Lithium is next Caspa. I think we as home miners kind of tend to kind of grab onto these projects as they start to take off in that hopes, and I think, right now we kind of have two models that stick out. I should say 4, but it's really the AL0 coming out of Ice River, which is so funny because it literally, the form factor is the same as the home miners we've seen out of Ice River with the KS0 up through the Ultra. And then on the other side of the spectrum, completely other side of the spectrum, we have a massive monster with the AL1. Now, in between, we've kind of had these gold shells. The AL box and the AL box 2. So we'll jump into the Ice River and the Bitmain in a second. But what have been your thoughts on these units? Have you purchased these gold shells, and what are your thoughts on the AL box and the AL box 2 at this point?
I was hesitant to get the gold shell miners because the price was, in my opinion, a little high for a box miner. And
you could be honest. You could say way high.
It was way high. You're right. You're 100% right. Thank you.
You're not hurting any feelings. You're not hurting any feelings.
Exactly. No hard feelings, gold shell. But I mean, almost $7,000 for a mini box miner tells me almost automatically that like I'm a little hesitant to get into something with that kind of cash in a small box miner, because if a small box miner like that is out, somebody else is working on something massive. And that hash per cash just doesn't add up once the AL1 came out and the AL0 from Ice River. If you look at the hash rate per the amount of money you're spending, the efficiency, the AL0 is more in line with what the AL1 is capable of. And unfortunately, gold shell is kind of in the middle. It's not quite as efficient. Now, if I had one right now, I'd be very happy, but I wouldn't be happy if I spent $7,000 on one. I would take one for a lot less money. I'd love to have one. I want to mine Lithium too, but just not with that price point. It's just a different stage in the game too. I would want the efficient miner, and I didn't want to spend 32,000 on the AL1. So I did get an AL0. So I have actually 2 AL0s coming.
Awesome. Yeah, the gold shells very much, it's tough because you look at gold shell, and gold shell's demographic traditionally has been home miners, right? That's who they're appealing to. And then we see these units come out that the profitability is through the roof, which is awesome. I mean, kudos to gold shell for getting out a Lithium hardware early. They were out before anybody, and significantly. I think the challenge is that we naturally align gold shell as home miners. That's the demographic. And then you have a unit come out that is nowhere near kind of that home miner. Anything below $1,000 is what I always kind of look at for like, oh, this is, targeted for a home miner. I think it makes sense. I think it's within the world of acceptability and risk for most home miners. But the gold shells were just absolutely overpriced. And then the hard part is that we have learned now, especially with a lot of these Caspa miners and Lithium miners coming out of gold shell, is they're always overpriced, and within a month they've dropped down significantly. I mean, look at the Caspa ones; those cut down so freaking fast. I mean, it's tough because do you go in on that investment? So I totally understand. So taking a step now into what I think is going to be the more norm is the AL0. Right now goes for $7.99 based off of where we are right now. And those actually, I believe, have started shipping or at least are there. What are your thoughts on the price point? Because you talked about a lot to hash to price ratio. What are your thoughts on that for the AL0?
I feel like they're in a fair price range because I was looking at the efficiency and I was looking at the cost of the hash rate against the big boy AL1, and I was not expecting it to be anywhere close. I was expecting the AL1 to kind of crush it because for that kind of money, you would expect like way more efficiency. But I was very surprised actually to see that the AL0 was like really close in that range. So I'm impressed with the AL0. But you and I have both seen with the small KS0, KS0 Pro, KS0 Ultra, we're just chasing our own tails. Like there's always another one that comes out, the hash rate goes up, then we overclock them. Then it gets to the point where it's like, okay, it's not taking a lot of wattage. So I don't mind letting it run at 100 watts, off, on a shelf somewhere. But at some point it does seem like, like you're mining such a small amount that you have to kind of scale up. And I'm hoping that sometime soon someone will come out with a middle range that's a reasonable price. And maybe it'll be Ice River, maybe it'll be somebody else. They had, Gold Shell had the Echo for, the CAS Basic launch. And I was kind of hoping they kind of teased and made it seem like they were going to launch a CASPA
Yeah, didn't they?
and a
Didn't they?
lithium. They tagged
Yep.
CASPA and a lithium. And I even did a video where I was like, yeah, so maybe a CASPA miner and a lithium miner are going to be coming out there somewhere in the middle that have, takes a little more wattage, but you feel like you're getting somewhere, by stacking more lithium. So I really would like a middle of the range one. I don't want to spend 32 grand on the AL1. I like that the smaller miners decentralize the network, of course, like the AL0. That's affordable for a normal person for the most part. If they want to get into mining, it's a great little miner to learn on, but you're not going to get rich off that thing. It's good to practice on. And if you want to keep stacking a lithium, get a couple of them and just let it go and support the network. They're great for that. But if you really want to get serious, you have to kind of have a little bit more hash rate than just that 400 gigahash. Because I feel like in a few months that 400 gigahash isn't going to get the job done anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for getting in early and being first. And I mean, for those individuals that did elect to go with the AL1, I think that they're going to make a pretty good amount of money off of that. Looking at the AL0, as you had mentioned, yeah, I agree with you. Right now, it's making several dollars a day, $7 to $8 a day. Let's say at a 10-cent electric rate. But when you're talking about 100 watts, you're not really too concerned on what your electric rate is. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be great to get into it. I think what I tell people about that miner is like, think where it is now and think about maybe 1/4 of that in the next few months. Like it's going to drop. Absolutely. We really don't know. I mean, lithium is definitely the Wild West at this point, especially when we only really have a handful of miners out there. So looking on the flip side then at the AL1, you said you didn't buy it versus when Caspa was first announced with Ice River on their ASIC, and what was that price point for the AL1 when that first dropped? Do you remember?
The AL1 was like, isn't it like
Oh, I'm sorry,
$32,000?
the KS one,
The
the KS one.
KS1,
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, what was that
yeah,
when you first got into that one?
it was 16,000 for the
Okay.
KS1, and then there was import duties and stuff like that. So really, the
Yeah, yeah.
all-in price, it's a little higher than that. But it was
Yep.
16,000 for the KS1. It was 1,800 for the KS0. So
Oof.
I took the risk on that
So what
one.
were your thoughts on? So yeah, so then the AL one. What made you elect not to pull the trigger on that guy and purchase that one when the pre-orders were going down?
I just felt like the timing of it and just where we're at in this, like in the possible cycle, I just didn't feel like I'd be able to get everything back out of that I wanted. The the asymmetric bet with the KS1 and the KS0 for me was we didn't know if Ice River was real, and I was in a different place too. Like I had just made some pretty good money off of making some moves like after the FTX collapse. So I was like, And I was like, there, supposedly, we had a lot more time before the next bull run, if you believe in the cycle. So I just thought the timing of this, the emission schedule being aggressive, like I know it's like they're going to be kicking out a lot of CASPA. When I got that KS1, I think it was 220 CASPA per block. And now I think in the next month it's dropping to 87. So I knew that if you got in early with CASPA, like you would probably do pretty well because the emission schedule is like very generous at the beginning to try and decentralize the amount of CASPA that was going out to miners. So I just felt like that bet was a better bet at that time than this $32,000 bet would be at this time. Just timing and the way the protocols and the tokenomics of each project uh, are kind of like written in stone. Like I just felt like I just couldn't pull the trigger on a $32,000 miner for the way I kind of think it might play out. And I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I could be kicking myself a year from now. People are cashing in,
Hmm.
doing videos like I've been doing on the KS1. They'll be doing the AL1 videos, and I'll be like, "I told Greater Good, you should have bought that miner."
Yep. Oh yeah, it's definitely a gamble. I mean, I think
Yeah.
going back just within the last few weeks, the L1 was well over $500, and now it's down to 322. Just looking at it real quick. So, but it could fluctuate. We could see, very easily, a lithium's price is down right now. We could see the market rebound, and then we're kicking ourselves. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think it's a gamble. So. Rumor has it that we will see Ice River coming out with their ASIC miners, their kind of version of the 5L or the 5M, or they could call it the 3 series, whatever they want to call it. Is that something that you think you would be more likely to step into just based off of price, or what are your thoughts?
I feel like I could get into a miner like that instead of the $32,000 one, and I feel like by then maybe it's like either you got to be first or you have to kind of watch. Like, and I wasn't first. I didn't order the first round of the big boy. I have AL zeros on their way, but I just feel like I could bite off a smaller like chunk if I could get a less expensive miner. Because I do feel like Alephium, like I said, like I feel like it's a good project. I do think it's probably going to get legs, and the market cap's so low right now. It's like only 133 million when I looked earlier today. Um, there's opportunity there. There is for sure. And you know, if it plays out similarly to, I don't want to say like that it's similar to Cadena, but if it plays out like that, we could have a pretty good run up from 133 million if it hit like the market cap of Cadena in the peak of the last bull run. I think they were 3.5 billion total market cap at an all time high. If it got to that point, you'd be talking about like $45 a lithium instead of $1.50 like today. So, I mean, that's like almost like a 40x. It's like a 40x. That's nothing to like that's not like a small money you're talking about. You could do really well. But I just feel like where I'm at in the cycle and where I'm at like with my own finances, I just didn't want to do the 32 grand. I could bite off like a smaller miner. I could handle that.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat. Looking at things, I have the AL0 on the way. That'll get me in there as well as provide some content for the community. But then on top of that, yeah, I think I'm in the same boat where I'd be looking at what mid-level Ice River, what Ice River models are coming out that are their full-size ASICs. I mean, look how many models Ice River came out with just for Caspa. So
Mhm.
there's lots of opportunity here. It's really interesting that they've kind of only come out with the AL1 and that they haven't really said anything about these other ones yet. Maybe they're waiting for kind of some strategic moves. We'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for that. I think a lot of people are holding off, like you and I, where we're just like, okay, well, maybe there's a 1, 2, and 3 coming out, or their 5L or their 5M version. So I think that'll be really exciting. So last thoughts and comments on just message to the community on the risk of treating a lithium like Caspa.
And that's a great like question because that's my concern. People that are watching this play out are, if they're not like deeply educated in both protocols, they might just assume that it's going to work out like Caspa for them. Um, Caspa is kind of like a first mover with this like proof of work that is scalable. And even if Lithium is a great project, it's got smart contracts, it's built well. Um, it might not play out the same because there's so much hype behind Caspa, and there's big companies like Marathon, like big names like talking about it, it's got first mover advantage and proof of work. If it gets those smart contracts before the next bull run, you could say that maybe Alephium might just kind of maybe get left behind. Like maybe if Caspa can do everything that Alephium could do, maybe people would just go towards Caspa, to build on. I know that Rust is an easier program to build on than Alephium's got their own unique, like programming. So I just feel like do your research, do deep research on both protocols, and watch what the tokenomics are of each protocol that you get into, because you could even go further down the line and talk about Radiant, because there's like we could speculate about Radiant's ASICs, that might be
we've heard about that too.
Yeah. So just if you're gonna plunk that kind of money down, make sure you very deeply look into the project and look at like past performance of other projects too. Like but keep in mind they're not all the same, and Caspa is definitely different from Alephium. I don't feel like Alephium is the next Caspa. Alephium's, Caspa's Caspa. You can do well with both, but just know what you're getting yourself into before you dive in.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a smart. I think it's feel free to take a risk, but take a small risk. As we talked about with like the AL0 for our home miners, the AL1 is definitely a bigger risk. I've been talking with several different people with some consulting calls on looking to go this route, because their heart starts at going with Bitcoin, and then they see something like the AL1 and they're like, well, can I just take this and, flip it to Bitcoin? And you absolutely can. I mean, the profitability is there, but you have a massive upfront capital expense getting into that. And we don't know, as we said, it's $322 a day the AL1 is making right now. And next week that could go, let's say Alethium all of a sudden skyrockets as these AL1s start coming out. Man, now you're sitting pretty and you're looking awesome, but it's just very risky. And so it may benefit many of you. Many of you may take that risk and it may pay off, but we hate to see someone over leverage themselves on this unit and then all of a sudden turn around and 6 months from now, you're like, I'm making $50 a day on something that cost me $30,000 to $40,000. And so there's definitely that risk there. So I think our final messaging to the community on, is Alethium the next Caspa? The answer is no. But I think the underlining comment there is we really don't know. And we don't know what we don't know. And so I think it's something that we need to step into and be careful about. So that being said, Greater Good, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Do appreciate it, guys. I'm going to leave links to his channel. Go check it out if you're a huge Caspa fan. You can find anything and everything Caspa over there, especially when it comes down to the hardware. And I will link you over to the Your Friend Andy podcast, where he sits down with Greater Good and talks about his journey. It's stepping into Caspa early and how it financially paid off. Well, Greater Good, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks a lot, Javier. It was great talking to you.
Have a good one, guys. Sorry to interrupt your video, but check this out. I constantly get emails from the community asking me about trustworthy hosting facilities in the United States that I recommend. Well, I got you covered. Listen up. A few months back, I visited Block Ops Mining's brand new facility in Central Arkansas. The team there was super professional, knowledgeable, and everyday miners like you and I. After visiting the facility, I sent them a few of my ASIC miners for hosting and have been super happy with their service and communication. Go contact Block Ops Mining directly down below in the video description and tell them the Hobbyist Miner sent you for great pricing on miners and hosting.